Internet news with no filter. Welcome to News Sesh. Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're diving into a really important topic. Today we're talking about Sydney Sweeney, actress, producer, media target, and apparently the internet's latest obsession once again. Because after her GQ interview dropped, Sydney found herself trending, not for a new film, not for a scandal, but for simply being honest. And that says everything about how our culture still doesn't know what to do with a woman who's confident, successful, and self-aware. This video isn't just about Sydney Sweeney. It's about how Hollywood, the media, and the internet keep recycling the same tired playbook. Build a woman up, put her on a pedestal, and then lose their minds when she doesn't stay perfectly humble on top of it. Let's talk about what Sydney actually said in that GQ interview, why people twisted it, and what it reveals about the exhausting double standards of modern fame. So grab your overpriced coffee, or your brand-sponsored energy drink. We're going in. So, let's start with the basics. Sydney Sweeney sat down with GQ for a long-form feature, the kind of profile that's supposed to celebrate an actor's achievements and dig into their mindset. But of course, because it's Sydney, one single quote got plucked out of context and spun across social media faster than a PR intern can hit post. She talked about her career, her production company, her relationship with fame, and yes, she addressed that now infamous jeans ad that caused so much noise online. If you missed it, Sydney starred in a denim campaign earlier this year. You know, a totally normal thing for a global celebrity to do. But the internet, in all its predictable chaos, decided that the ad was too sexy, too self-aware, or, my favorite, too much Sydney Sweeney being Sydney Sweeney. People projected everything onto that ad. They argued about her body, her expression, her confidence, like it was some cultural debate instead of, a jeans commercial. And when GQ asked her about it, Sydney didn't flinch. She laughed. She said something along the lines of, "People will always project their own issues onto you, and if you know who you are, none of that noise matters." Simple, grounded, mature. But of course, the internet didn't want maturity. It wanted melodrama. So within hours, people started twisting her calm, self-assured response into a dozen different headlines. Suddenly, Sydney wasn't being confident. She was being defensive. She wasn't being thoughtful. She was being manipulative. It's like people can't handle a woman refusing to apologize for existing in her own skin. Sydney Sweeney is what the industry loves to label an it girl. That term sounds flattering, but it's basically a time bomb. It means you're the moment. You're the face, the name, the aesthetic everyone wants, until they decide they're sick of you. Sydney earned her fame the old-fashioned way, by working hard. Euphoria, The White Lotus, Reality, and a growing list of credits that prove she's not just a pretty face, she's a powerhouse actor with range. But the thing about being the it girl is that people stop seeing you as human. You become an avatar of other people's fantasies, insecurities, and moral expectations. And then, no matter what you say or do, it's wrong. You smile too much? Fake. You look serious? Cold. You wear jeans in an ad? Too sexy. You speak out about your work ethic? Try hard. Sydney's existence itself has become a Rorschach test for how society feels about confident women. Let's pause on that ad, because it's important. Sydney's jeans commercial wasn't revolutionary, but the reaction to it absolutely was. People online dissected it frame by frame, like it was some kind of manifesto. They said she was playing into the male gaze, as if a woman can't own her image and her sexuality on her own terms. They said she was objectifying herself, ignoring the fact that Sydney was in complete creative control of that project. But when GQ asked her about it, Sydney didn't take the bait. She didn't go defensive or angry. She just said, "People are going to say whatever they want, and I'm still going to do what I love." That's grace under fire. But grace doesn't trend. Controversy does. The same internet that sexualizes her endlessly also criticizes her for being too aware of her image. So, what do people actually want from her? A woman who's confident, but not too confident. Sexy, but only if it's tasteful. Powerful, but never unapologetic. It's an impossible equation, and Sydney refuses to play by those rules anymore. Sydney's GQ interview wasn't just about defending herself. It was about taking control of her story. She's been vocal about how she had to fight her way into the industry, how she grew up far from Hollywood wealth, and how she's built her own production company to create the roles she believes in. That's the kind of determination people usually celebrate. But in the age of relatable marketing, authenticity has become its own performance. People want celebrities to be real, but only the kind of real that feels safe and flattering. Sydney's version of authenticity, confident, ambitious, complex, makes people uncomfortable because it's not easy to categorize. And the internet hates anything that doesn't fit into a clean label. If you notice, every Sydney Sweeney headline follows the same pattern. It's either Sydney Sweeney opens up about being underestimated, or Sydney Sweeney claps back at critics. Because the media thrives on tension. They want her to be polarizing, the girl next door with too much ambition, the Hollywood bombshell who dares to talk about money, the actress who refuses to apologize for looking like a movie star. If Sydney were a man, she'd be praised for her confidence. But because she's a woman, she's constantly walking a tightrope between self-expression and self-defense. And the internet watches, popcorn in hand, pretending this is normal. Now, let's be real. Part of why the jeans ad hit such a nerve is because it forced people to confront their own hypocrisy about women and sexuality. Sydney has never pretended to be modest or prudish. She embraces her femininity, her confidence, her beauty, all while being a serious actor. But we still live in a culture that doesn't know how to process that combination. People are fine with women being sexualized as long as it's not their choice. When Sydney chooses to be in control of how she's seen, people suddenly panic. They say she's performing or manipulating her image. Newsflash: every actor in Hollywood is performing. Every photo shoot is curated. Every ad is strategic. But only women like Sydney get accused of being too aware of it. When men brand themselves, it's marketing. When women do it, it's manipulation. There's also something deeper happening here, the obsession with overexposure. People love to say they're tired of Sydney Sweeney, that she's everywhere. But she's not on your screen because she's forcing herself there. She's there because audiences keep watching her content, clicking her interviews, and sharing her ads. The same people who complain about her visibility are the ones generating her visibility. It's like watching someone set a fire and then complain about the smoke. Sydney's doing what every actor dreams of doing, working, thriving, staying relevant. But because she's a woman, success starts to look suspicious. And that's when the culture turns on you. This GQ interview is more than a PR moment. It's a mirror. It's Sydney saying, "You don't get to define me by your projections." She's not playing victim. She's not begging for sympathy. She's drawing a line, reminding the world that she's not an algorithm. When she talks about her craft, about producing, about fighting for herself in rooms where she wasn't taken seriously, she's doing what every other actor does. But because of her face, her body, her aura, people act like she has to apologize for it. She doesn't. And she won't. That's what makes her powerful. Imagine living in a world where you can't exist without being interpreted, where a laugh becomes a headline, a photo becomes a debate, and a simple jeans ad becomes a think piece about modern feminism. That's the reality Sydney lives in. She can't win, because winning itself becomes the crime. But the thing that makes Sydney Sweeney remarkable isn't just her beauty or talent. It's her resilience. She keeps showing up. She keeps creating. She keeps turning noise into art. That's what longevity looks like. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The Sydney Sweeney backlash says more about us than it does about her. We've built an ecosystem that profits off tearing women down. We consume their confidence like entertainment. We crave their vulnerability like gossip. And the moment they show too much of either, we decide they've gone too far. Sydney isn't the problem. She's the product of a culture that can't handle a woman who knows her value. We don't need to fix Sydney Sweeney. We need to fix our obsession with controlling how women are perceived. The best part? Sydney's already one step ahead. She's not waiting for validation. She's producing her own films, shaping her own career, building her own empire. She doesn't need permission anymore. And that, more than anything, terrifies people because it means she's unstoppable. Her GQ interview wasn't damage control. It was declaration. Sydney Sweeney isn't the it girl. She's the boss. So, what can we learn from this? First, that confidence in women shouldn't be controversial. Second, that being self-aware isn't the same as being fake. And third, that Sydney Sweeney deserves better than to have her ambition turned into clickbait. She's not perfect, no one is, but she's human. And she's handling fame with more grace and humor than most people would under a tenth of that pressure. The media machine doesn't stop. Next week, it'll move on to someone else, another woman who smiled too much or spoke too confidently. But Sydney's story will linger because she's not just surviving the cycle, she's rewriting it. Every time she laughs off a controversy, every time she sidesteps an online storm, she's quietly changing what power looks like for women in Hollywood. She's reminding everyone that self-awareness isn't a flaw, it's freedom. Sydney Sweeney's GQ interview didn't expose her. It exposed us. Our need to police women's confidence. Our obsession with pretending vulnerability and strength can't coexist. She didn't have to defend herself. She just had to remind everyone that she doesn't owe the internet an apology for being herself. And that's what real power looks like in 2025. So maybe next time we see Sydney in a jeans ad, or in an interview, or on a red carpet, instead of dissecting her, we just let her exist. Because she's earned it. And honestly, she's already won. And that's a wrap, guys. Like if you did, subscribe for more fun. See ya.